I'm a woman in my early 30s, and like many people, I work a regular office job. My days are filled with meetings, emails, and trying to meet deadlines. But when I finally finish work, I usually like to unwind by cooking something nice for dinner. To make sure I always have fresh ingredients, I usually go to the same grocery store near my apartment a couple of times a week. It's not a big store, but it's convenient. And I've become pretty familiar with the layout and the people there. About 4 or 5 months ago, I was shopping one evening, just picking out my usual vegetables for the week's meals. The store wasn't too crowded, so I was able to take my time and focus on what I needed. While I was in the produce aisle, I noticed a store employee come up to me and greet me. At first, I thought he was just doing his job. So we exchanged pleasantries. He asked me how I was doing and if I had found everything I needed. Nothing strange, just typical small talk. Over the next couple of weeks, I noticed the same employee approaching me again. He'd smile, say hello, and ask how my day was going. It was friendly enough, but it started happening every time I went there. He would ask about my dinner plans or what I was making. It wasn't anything inappropriate, so I didn't think much of it, but it was a little strange how often it happened. Then one evening, I was in the aisle looking for spices, and he came up to me again, but this time he seemed a little more forward. He asked if I'd like to grab a drink with him after I finished shopping. I was caught off guard, but I politely turned him down, saying I wasn't interested. It felt awkward, but I didn't think much of it. But then, the next few times I went to the store, it became more uncomfortable. He started waiting for me in the aisles, standing around as if he were trying to run into me. He would sometimes appear out of nowhere when I was reaching for an item, making it feel like he was following me. One evening, as I was checking out, I noticed him standing near the exit, just watching me. It started to feel less like a friendly interaction and more like an obsession. One night, after I'd finished my shopping, I walked to my car and saw his vehicle parked nearby. I didn't think much of it at first, but as I drove out of the parking lot, I realized he was following me. He took the same turns I did, keeping a steady distance behind me. I started to panic and made a few unexpected turns to lose him. Thankfully, after a few minutes, I didn't see his car behind me anymore. The next day, I decided I'd had enough. I went to the store's manager and explained everything that had been happening. The manager listened, but then said something that made my stomach drop. He told me that the man wasn't an employee at all. It was like a cold wave hit me. The man had been wearing a store uniform to trick me into thinking he worked there. I was horrified. I had been dealing with this creep who had been pretending to be an employee. After that, I made the decision to stop shopping there, and I never returned. This story happened a couple of years ago, and it's one that still makes my skin crawl every time I think about it. I was at Walmart one evening, around 9 p.m. The store wasn't too busy, so it was pretty quiet. I had just finished a long shift at work and wanted to grab a few things for the week. I wandered down the aisles, picking up a few items when I heard something strange. It was a man's voice coming from the toy aisle. I didn't think much of it at first. I assumed maybe it was just a dad talking to his kids, but as I walked closer, I could hear more clearly. The man was saying, "I'll buy you this toy if you come with me." That immediately made me stop in my tracks. It didn't sound right. I listened more carefully and heard him say, "Your mom said it's okay." That made my stomach drop. I quickly walked toward the toy aisle, trying to figure out what was going on. When I turned the corner, I saw a man standing with a little girl. He was holding her hand, but there was something about the situation that didn't sit right with me. The girl didn't seem like she was willingly following him, and he didn't look like a parent at all. He seemed too calm and almost too confident in his actions. Just as I was starting to feel really uncomfortable, I heard a woman's voice calling, "Sarah." I looked around, and a woman was frantically searching the aisles. I immediately approached her and told her what I had heard. She looked at me, her face filled with fear, and then quickly dashed down the aisle, calling her daughter's name. We met up at the front of the store, and the woman was frantic, telling the staff what had happened. A few moments later, I saw the man trying to walk out of the store with the girl, but he didn't make it very far. Employees and security quickly stepped in, and the man was caught before he could leave. It turned out that he wasn't the girl's father, and he had been trying to abduct her. The whole thing was a close call, and I couldn't shake the feeling that if I hadn't been there at that exact moment, things could have turned out differently. A few years ago, I had just finished a late shift at work around 10 p.m. and I needed to grab a few things from Walmart before heading home. It was a quiet night and the store was nearly empty, which I didn't mind. I always found late night shopping to be peaceful, with fewer people around and a calm atmosphere. I could take my time and not worry about long lines or crowded aisles. I was in one of the aisles, casually picking out a few items when I first noticed him. At the end of the aisle, there was a man standing still, staring directly at me. At first, I didn't think much of it. He could have just been waiting for someone or lost in thought, I assumed. So I moved to a different aisle, thinking nothing of it. But when I turned the corner, I noticed he was there again, standing at the end of that aisle, watching me. Now, I started to feel uncomfortable. It wasn't just that he was there, it was the way he was watching me. Like he wasn't just browsing, but intentionally observing my every move. I thought, maybe I was overthinking it, so I continued with my shopping, trying to shake off the weird feeling in my gut. But when I moved to yet another aisle, he was there once again, positioned at the end, staring at me from a distance. I tried to dismiss it. Maybe he was just another late-night shopper, but the way he was always there, always watching, started to feel too deliberate. I was starting to get paranoid, but I didn't want to make a scene or jump to conclusions, so I decided to finish up and head to the self-checkout. Once I reached the self-checkout, I thought I would be in the clear. The store was quiet, and I was focused on scanning my items quickly so I could get out and head home. But as I began to scan, I looked up, and there he was. This time, he was right behind me, so close that I could feel his presence. I didn't even hear him approach. My heart started to race, and I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I quickly finished scanning, paid, and grabbed my bags, trying to stay calm but feeling increasingly panicked. I rushed out of the store, keeping my head down and not looking around too much. I didn't want to give him any reason to follow me, but when I reached the parking lot, my heart sank. There he was again, standing near my car, watching me from a distance. The same man. He didn't seem to be in any hurry or doing anything else. He was just standing there, staring. At this point, panic set in. I quickly unlocked my car, threw my bags in the passenger seat, and got inside. I locked the doors as fast as I could, not daring to look around too much in case he was getting closer. I started the engine, my hands shaking, and drove out of the parking lot as quickly as I could. My mind was racing. Was he following me? Was he really going to follow me? My heart was pounding in my chest. I tried to stay calm, telling myself it was just my imagination, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. As I drove down the familiar streets on my way home, I couldn't resist checking the rearview mirror. My stomach dropped when I saw that he was behind me, in a car a few vehicles back. He wasn't far, and he was making the exact same turns I was making, following my every move. My breath quickened, and I tried to calm myself down, but it wasn't easy. I took a couple of extra turns, hoping to shake him off, but he still followed. My mind raced with all the worst-case scenarios. What if he had been watching me the whole time? What if he was planning something? I kept my eyes glued to the road, glancing at the rear-view mirror as often as I could, praying I would lose him. After a few more turns, I couldn't see his car anymore. For the next few minutes, I kept checking my mirrors, half expecting him to pop up again, but he never did. I finally breathed a sigh of relief as I made it home, parked in my driveway, and quickly ran inside, making sure all the doors were locked. My nerves were shot, and I couldn't stop shaking for a while. I never went back to that Walmart at night after that experience. The entire situation left me feeling uneasy, and I was always paranoid about running into that man again. It was a terrifying night, one that has stayed with me, and I've always been extra cautious when I'm out late, or alone in places like that. It taught me to trust my instincts and be more aware of my surroundings, especially when something doesn't feel right.